Welcome to the Cookie-pocalypse webinar, hosted by the World Media Group. My name is Belinda Barker and I'm the Chief Executive. The World Media Group is an alliance of leading international media organisations that engage and connects brands with highly engaged, influential audiences in the context of renowned journalism. The members of the World Media Group are world renowned for their journalism, but almost as importantly, they're leaders in the use and understanding and insight derived from their very own P1 data. Now, the name of this webinar is Cookie-pocalypse, but to be honest, that's hyperbole. It's really just to get all of you to come and share this webinar with us today. The one thing we've learned during the pandemic is that we are able to adapt. And no doubt, as an industry, we will be able to adapt to this change. But there are going to be some winners and losers. And I hope that this session will help all of us to be on the winning side of that equation. Today's session is going to be chaired by Emily Roberts from BBC Global News and one of the World Media Group's lovely members. Emily's been great help to me putting this programme together, and she's highly qualified to be the chair. Emily's going to be joined by an amazing group of panellists, and she'll introduce them shortly. And they have experience from all sides of the industry. This is such an important topic, and I think that's testament to why we have almost 600 people joining us right now from all around the world. So I'd like to welcome everybody here joining us in Europe, but also those who've got up early in the US and staying up a little later in Asia, depending on what hemisphere of the world that you're in. We've got people joining us from all sorts of different parts of the world that have never joined us before. And if the person in Honduras who signed up for the seminar is out there, I'd like to particularly welcome them. So the World Media Group's annual programme is designed to inspire and educate and share best practices across the media and marketing industry. This is our second session of 2021, and it's the very first time we've had an event sponsor. So for those of you who don't know Permitive, they are an audience platform that give advertisers access to addressable consumers from premium publishers, achieving precision targeting while keeping everyone's data safe. So I'd like to introduce you to Elizabeth Brennan, who is their head of advertising strategy at Permitive. And she's going to share with you some key findings from some research that they have recently completed on this subject. So welcome, Elizabeth. Can I welcome you today and hand over to you?
Thank you so much, Belinda, for that introduction. Hello, everybody. I'm Elizabeth, and as Belinda said, I'm the head of advertising strategy at Permitive. I'm going to give you a quick briefing on the future of targeted and privacy compliant advertising using 4 different stats. In February, we commissioned Forrester to survey 105 advertisers at manager level and above in the UK and the US. And I'm going to take you through the highlights and give our view on what this research means about the future of digital advertising in the open web. The first stat is that 73% of brands are concerned with new privacy laws. And it's really easy to understand why. 1 in 5 customers have avoided buying a brand over its data practices. Data regulations and browser updates aim to protect user privacy, but undoubtedly they are upending existing marketing strategies, and marketers are facing an increasingly complex and confusing market. What is imperative is that brands take this opportunity to make plans around what they can control. They should build partnerships with those who have privacy compliant practices and build first-party data collection and execution strategies. The second stat is that 41% of advertisers rely exclusively on third-party data for targeting and measurement. This stat shows that there's much more work to be done by brands in terms of future-proofing their data strategies. Consider that in January 2022, third-party data will become null, and the only compliant scalable data for targeting will be publisher-based. It's time for advertisers now to wean themselves off third-party data. It's not too late to start building a plan from moving away from this style of working, but you need to invest in learning what blend of brand versus direct publisher relationships and first-party targeting will work for you. Allocate time to building direct relationships with publishers. They have an exceptional understanding of their audiences and a wealth of actionable first-party data. I strongly encourage advertisers to form alliances with publishers that are strategically valuable to them. The third stat is that 36% of brands say improving customer trust is a top priority for their organizations. The digital advertising industry has been collecting a huge amount of data about their customers to track them across the web. And this has to change, and brands are starting to prioritize it. Without building or rebuilding customer trust in how they use their data, data-driven marketing will be near impossible. There are things that brands and advertisers can do now to get ahead. Get to know the privacy preferences of your customers, because the level of data privacy expected from them will differ across categories. Then set up best practices with your internal teams and use external communications to really show customers the work that you're doing and how you're protecting their data. Adhering to best practices like this with transparency with your customers will help to build and preserve that brand trust. Question the compliance of your partners too, and ensure that they have the technology in place to really protect that hard-earned first-party data. Finally, 52% of brands have less than 5 direct publisher relationships. Publishers have a first-party relationship with their audience, and this means that they're able to attach compliant identifiers to 100% of the people that browse their sites. So in order for brands to really scale their data and work with the 95% of the web that will be anonymous once third-party cookies are removed from Chrome, you need to work more closely with publishers. Then you'll need to test first-party data activation. Having one-to-one relationships with strategically important publishers is absolutely key. But you also need to be able to scale digital targeting, and that means gaining access to reputable publishers who you don't necessarily have a direct relationship with. Working with a technology partner who can provide the infrastructure for you to do this in a streamlined way will give advertisers the ability to reach existing and new customers, which we all know is at the heart of marketing. It enables publishers also to open up their audiences to advertisers perhaps they don't have direct relationships with yet. But fundamentally, it's the only future-proof way you can protect yourself against data depreciation, which is caused by privacy regulation and browser updates. Thank you so much for your attention. And with that, I will hand back to Belinda.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Before I hand you over to Emily, I just have a little bit of housekeeping to share with you. For those of you who are socially active, do please share using our handle, which is hashtag WMG Cookieless World. And secondly, just before 1 p.m. GMT, we will be opening this up to questions, and we really want to know, what is top of your mind. So you'll see at the bottom of your screen, you've got a question box. Do please start using that now. And with that, I really would like to hand over to Emily Roberts, who's Programming Trading Manager for EMEA at BBC Global News. And welcome, Emily. Take it away.
Thank you, Belinda, and thank you, World Media Group, so much for having us host this incredible webinar today. Thank you for those that are listening at home or in an office or wherever you may be. And of course, thank you to our incredible panelists today. We really do have an amazing lineup of experts. So we have a poll, which should hopefully be appearing on your screens now, which we'll be taking a look at later on in the webinar. But for now, I want to introduce our incredible lineup. So of course you'll be familiar with Elizabeth Brennan, who's head of advertiser strategy at Permutive, Paul Kofi, director of platforms, partnerships and privacy at Google, with the wonderful Ratul Shah, who's head of product marketing at SAP, Jay Glogowski, who's executive director of revenue analytics and operations at the New York Times, and finally we have Erin Lachlan, director of ad tech, products and services at Dow Jones. So before we get into the panel, I just want to give a brief introduction to why we're all here today and to give you a kind of overview of what on earth kind of this means and what on earth is a third-party cookie. So at present, the website that you visit, with a few exceptions, will add something called a cookie to your device that you're using. And these cookies are small snippets of code, and they help track your browsing history across the web. Their collected information via a cookie could be used for, say, personalizing your content offering on a website, keeping you logged into an account if you're shopping, as well as displaying ads based on your interests. So showing you relevant and personalized ads improves your experience online and helps you to monetize the sites that you visit and that you love. And they do this by essentially selling your interest to advertisers. So third-party cookies, they send data they have collected back to a different website other than the one you're on. And third-party cookies can then build a generic interest segment about the user. So for instance, a business news enthusiast could be those who visited any relevant business pages across a set of news publishers. So for instance, say the New York Times, Dow Jones, or BBC. Whereas first-party cookies, by comparison, will only share their data back to the owners of the website you're visiting at the time. So all cookies are saved and handled by the browser you're using, and the biggest browser being Google's Chrome by market share. And last January, Google announced that in 2022, third-party cookies will be no longer used on Chrome. And this change essentially means that any data that an advertiser wants to collect or buy off a website that isn't theirs will no longer be doing this by the current approach. And it's a fantastic privacy milestone for all our users on the website. However, without a working privacy and preserving alternative that is widely supported by the wonderful advertising industry, this could severely risk the publisher's revenue. And it's important to note that similar privacy protection changes have already happened in other browsers, such as Safari and Mozilla. However, because not as many people use them compared to Chrome, this impact hasn't been as significant, as Chrome has about 70% of the market share. So, Paul, I want to come to you first and foremost, as I want to kind of understand what this change will mean to obviously the advertising industry, but also outside of the advertising industry. We have a lot of amazing people that don't work in advertising on the call today. What will it mean for them?
Thank you, Emily. It really goes back to what Elizabeth started off discussing, which was a sort of a long-term evolution of the ads online ecosystem. So for some time, it's been changing in response to consumer privacy expectations. 70% of users feel that they almost all the time they're being tracked by advertisers, technology firms, or other companies, and over 80% feel as if the potential risks they face from data collection outweigh the benefits. So clearly, there's something we need to do to improve, the sort of the ecosystem and the perception of the ecosystem for our users. Browsers, as you mentioned, device manufacturers and regulators all leaned into this issue to address these concerns. And I think the recent announcements at the beginning of this year from Google are reflective of those broader changes in the online ads industry. So in 2019, Chrome made a commitment to phase out third-party cookies. It was the last browser to do so, as you mentioned, but also importantly, not without a plan to support advertiser and agency use cases for publishers and marketers through a new initiative called Privacy Sandbox. And so the goal is to create privacy-led solutions which both address the needs of the user, but also sort of drive like really amazing monetization and campaign performance for online advertising. So we've had some really good engagement from the industry. It's not just a Google thing. It's the initiative of Sandbox is an industry-wide program which we ask everyone to get involved in. And we announced a recent experiment called Flock, Federated Learning of Cohorts, which was all around building audiences through cohorts, so large groups of users, where the data is kept in the browser, so it's very private, but it enables us to drive pretty good campaign performance. These are only experiments at the moment. We're rolling those out and learning from them. And so I think these initiatives, they may cause some disruption in terms of what's going away. We're used to our third-party cookie environment, But these are, pretty exciting and durable solutions for the future, I think, which we can move forward on.
Amazing. And obviously, there's a lot of kind of topics that have come up recently. We've had Cambridge Analytica, which I think really kind of raised awareness of how important it is that we need to be privacy conscious with everything we do. And actually, it was the New York Times that obviously spoke about Cambridge Analytica. So I want to come to you, Jay, and kind of ask you why do you think this is so important for your readers to be aware of this change?
Yeah, I really think it comes down to trust. Our goal is for our readers to trust the excellent journalism that we produce each day. And we at the New York Times are embracing this change from the industry. We don't believe that the deprecation of third-party cookies and the increase in adoption of first-party cookies is a sacrifice of insights, of capabilities, and more importantly, from our reader experience. We're really focused on providing the best-in-class reader experience, which is not only inclusive of our content and how we display that content to them, but also making sure that the ad experience is just as high quality. We're so much embracing this is that we've actually went a little ahead of the industry, and we decided and announced that we were going to shift away from third-party cookies for our direct business by the end of the Q1 2021, which is just a couple days away. And that's exciting for us because, again, we don't believe that this is a trade-off, and we're creating products and insights that are going to be more performant and create better ads for our ultimate readers and increase the reader experience overall and satisfaction by our readers.
Amazing. And I think that's so important as well, to kind of make not only the user's experience the best possible, but also for advertisers, they want the best possible experience, right, on the New York Times. So I want to come to, obviously, Ratul, you're in marketing, and I kind of want to understand, do you think that marketing will have to change enormously in the digital landscape? Do you think what marketers are doing at the moment in their current marketing strategy will have to change?
Thank you very much, Emily and Belinda, for having me, and welcome to everyone in the audience. There is a shift that's been happening. As we think about what Elizabeth started with and what Paul and Jay have all mentioned, there are a lot of key words that we all heard, and it all comes down to the customer experience and knowing who your customer is and how they want to be treated. And the only way to do that is by doing this with a trusted relationship, with giving them transparency over why you're collecting their data and why you need their first-party data. And then, of course, control over how you're using it. So as I think about what the New York Times is doing and going with that strategy to make things better for their base, for their customers, we all know that their customers are who is in control of the experience. A lot of people talk about that it's the marketer who owns the customer experience, or maybe it's the customer service representative who drives customer satisfaction scores. The reality is it is the customer. All of those privacy regulations that we talked about at the beginning, whether it was GDPR or in California, maybe those were regulations that were driven from the top down, but they were a result of what all of us as consumers have been asking for a very long time, for you to respect us and for us to be able to be in control of the relationship. And I think as marketers, the ones who adopt and understand that point and have the technology base to help them create that relationship, turn people from anonymous to known, help you be in control over your data and put you in the driver's seat, then give all of us as marketers, all of us as customer experience professionals, the way to look across internally, across our lines of business, break down those data silos that limit some of those experiences, and begin to put customers back in the driver's seat to give them exactly what they want: a trusted relationship with those brands that they're doing business with, ads that mean something to them, and experiences that keep them coming back for more, that ultimately exactly what every marketer wants is advocacy in our customer base.
Fantastic. And I think there's already some big themes coming through today, with trust, transparency, and privacy all being at the heart of essentially why these changes are happening. I also want to kind of talk about maybe the elephant in the room as well, the fact that there's essentially a lot of money, right? So third-party data is worth 19 billion or thereabouts. It could be slightly more. But I want to know, and obviously the poll as well that we put out is also highlighting this as well, where essentially that money is going to go. We've got $19 billion on the table, and obviously that could go across the whole of the advertising industry. So I've got the results, and what's quite interesting is we've got a whopping 56% of you have said that this is going to go to first-party data strategies. So I think quite a few people on the webinar today will be pretty happy with that result, potentially. We've got another 31% say contextual targeting, so site-level targeting. Direct partnerships as well, which is another really interesting one. We've had no one say subscriptions though, which I think is really, really interesting as well, which we'll come on to a bit later on. But I want to go to Elizabeth first and kind of ask you, obviously off the back of those results, but also from Permuter's point of view, where do you think this potential revenue will go?
Yeah, I think it's a fascinating question. So many of these costs could be hidden today. For example, inside a media buy, inside a platform fee. I don't think it's something that all advertisers have as a line item in their media plan, data cost, and what that's going to deliver to them. And also, I think let's not forget that in the ISPA programmatic case study, 15% of all spend that's spent in programmatic today is literally unaccounted for. And so I do think that data costs could potentially be higher than some advertisers think it is. Naturally, those funds will be redistributed. I expect that some should be going to publishers. There are fewer players in the market who will be kind of taking out a little bit of that pie or appending data to every kind of interaction in the bid stream. And that means that more money should be going to working media, if you like. So the actual percentage of an advertiser's budget that is spent on media. I think what's really important for the redistribution of these funds is that for advertisers and publishers who really want to thrive in the short term and long into the future, they need to kind of move towards privacy and make investment in, just as kind of our audience is saying, world-class kind of data privacy collection, analysis, and importantly, activation infrastructure.
Great. And obviously from the results that we've just seen, it really does feel like the industry wants to prioritize first-party data strategies. Paul, you mentioned that one of your proposals is around first-party data strategy. So I kind of want to understand where you feel the revenue will go, and if kind of you feel it will go down that route.
Yeah, thanks, Emily. So it sounds like we're all singing from the same hymn sheet today, but I think again, where this nominal money goes will go through, I'm sure, a diverse range of different opportunities as the marketplace evolves. Again, investment in and monetization of first-party data will grow. I mean, as Elizabeth said at the beginning, we're not seeing enough publishers and advertisers doing enough in this area. So, the potential is there to grow the pie for first-party activated campaign work. And so that's one of the pillars that we talk about when we talk to advertisers and agencies and publishers. Is really, really important. We did some research a couple of years ago with BCG, and from that it was pretty clear that with marketers could see like almost a double-fold impact in their campaign performance. And we're doing some research with Deloitte right now, which I think we're publishing in May, which will again look at how publishers can maximize their first-party data. So all of this really is about sort of pivoting into a new set of territories and opportunities. And we know that considered first-party data is really rich territory, which can drive campaigns much more powerfully. And many publishers in this call will have fantastic relationships with their readers and a really amazing value exchange. So they should be really confident they can sort of move into this new sort of era with confidence.
Fantastic. And in terms of the first-party data strategies that we're talking about, do you feel that we have a long way to go, Paul? Like you talk about the fact that we're kind of, obviously the proposal that was put forward for Google is still relatively new. Like how much further have we got to go? Do you think there's a lot of work for publishers to do there?
Well, we've already got solutions like PPID, which help publishers leverage their first-party data through Google Ad Manager in areas like reservation. And we've stated publicly a couple of weeks ago on a blog post that we'll open up to things like open bidding as well. And we're also exploring actively other solutions where other publishers can avail themselves of first-party data in the Ad Manager solution that we have for the marketplace. And really, when our announcement was an announcement of intent, it wasn't a change overnight. So there's a long period of time where the industry can evolve and change and adapt to those opportunities, and we'll do what we can to make sure that we can support everyone on that journey.
Brilliant. And so, Jay, I want to come to you now, because obviously the poll that we've just seen is really surprising that people didn't believe that potentially subscription is going to be a way forward. I know, working with the US, subscription based is a big model over there, like even for kind of American based video platforms like Netflix and a lot of others. Americans are a lot more willing to kind of subscribe, right? And so I want to kind of understand, obviously you have your own subscription model at the New York Times. Do you see revenue potentially going into subscription models? But if not, where do you see that money going for publishers?
Yeah, absolutely. I enjoy being the publisher representative on this question, since there's so much favorability across the poll. Realistically, we believe, our reader experience, which is going to be multiple factors, including ads, will drive more subscriptions. If we can provide the best reader experience and the product speaks for itself, that will come with more subscriptions. So it's a little bit less of a direct path around advertising, and we are a subscription first business. But we also know that, like, right now in this short term, it's going to be hard. And as we heard earlier from Elizabeth, is that advertisers need to have close relationships with their trusted premium publishers. I can't repeat that enough, but we're brilliant technologists that are going to solve for this and be able to create products and experiences for our readers, embracing this first party model. But yes, I do think subscriptions, obviously being a subscription first publisher, will stand to benefit, but only through the experience that we provide our readers. And first party has that capability of producing a better ad experience overall.
Brilliant. And there's been various studies done recently. One of them said that 52% of revenue would be lost by publishers on that. 52% of ad revenue could potentially be lost from a publisher point of view. Jay, do you have any kind of recommendations for what publishers should be doing? You obviously leading the way in that sense for, I think, many publishers out there.
Yeah, and we really strive to have closest partnerships possible with our agency partners and our brands. Obviously, this change has the potential of being impactful to many publishers. What we're attempting to do in this moment is strengthen our relationship and partnerships with advertisers to offset any or mitigate any risk that may come along with these changes. I'm also confident that because we are, as I mentioned before, brilliant technologists, we're going to solve a lot of this. And I think that there's a lot of publishers that stand to benefit in this moment as those partnerships and new solutions come on board and marketers and agencies embrace them in the both near and long term.
Brilliant. And so, talking of partnerships, Elizabeth, you mentioned that 50% of brands or advertisers have less than 5 direct publisher relationships, right? This seems really worrying. How do we basically change this?
Well, I think undoubtedly it will change. And I think the more worrying fact is that 20% of advertisers do not have any first sort of one-to-one direct publisher relationships. And my sort of strong view on that is that it's incredibly important that advertisers take the time now to build those relationships with publishers who are strategically important to them. And that means understanding where are the pockets of value in their media buying, who's delivering against marketing objectives, who's going to be a strategic partner for them, you know, in the long run, advertisers and agencies have spent years and years honing marketing approaches based on the data that we have available today. And if you put that in the context of having 9 months left to have an approach that's going to be suitable for tomorrow, I think the change needs to happen very, very rapidly. But, you know, there is time, and that can be spent in honing those relationships, building learnings now about what targeting strategies drive the best results. Jay already mentioned agencies, but, you know, agencies are incredibly well positioned to help advertisers with this discovery. I think sometimes it feels like a really, really daunting task, but actually there are advisors out there who could help advertisers on this journey. Importantly, I think brands and advertisers both own data. They're the ones who know their customers. They're the ones who know their audience. They're the ones who gain consent and can action data in a privacy compliant way. I think any solution that sees data being handed over to a third party is kind of risky. And we do recognise, though, that it's unlikely for advertisers to be able to build one-to-one relationships with every single publisher who they want to work with. So it's really important that they understand how can they have scalable strategies alongside building those strategically important relationships.
Brilliant. And so obviously there are a lot of amazing publishers out there, right, across the internet. Everybody at home will have like their specific publishers that they absolutely love and that they go back to day in, day out. And so I want to kind of understand how on earth advertisers are going to be able to be in the position of maintaining and creating more of these relationships with their publishers. So at all as part of the kind of marketing side, you obviously have the task of increasing direct publisher relationships, or is it that do you need these direct publisher relationships? How do you see it at SAP going forward?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, you know, Paul mentioned we all seem to be kind of singing from the same hymn sheet or having similar conversations, but it does come down to understanding the landscape as we all think about what this change is unleashing upon us. I think the benefit is for the customer once again to be put back into control, and that the pendulum is swinging toward us being in control, us as consumers, us as shoppers, us as individuals, and us as providers of the ecosystem have to understand that. And for all of us, the brands and the publishers and the advertisers need to know what's at the heart of what all of us want, and it is putting us back in control. You know, I think of conversations I have with my mom and dad and thinking about how they have suddenly been thrown into the digital world in the last year, no longer being able to, you know, walk freely down grocery store aisles or finding new products in that way. And the reality comes into the play is that as they become customers and as they learn and discover new products, it's got to be done in a way that helps them. And the only way to help someone is to truly understand who they are. And from a digital world, that means having a relationship with them and their data, using their data in a way that's trusted, connecting those dots, not just internally and inside. We often talk about, you know, breaking the silos down between the marketer and the commerce executive, all the way through, you know, when they call to the call center, so that it feels like the same relationship. But of course, across the network, across the various partners, when we do discover products, all of these micro conversions between anonymous data sets and first party data sets have to be able to be connected back together and in a way that the customer knows what data you have. But then of course, making sure that you have consent to use that data and that you're effectively personalizing that relationship in a way that delivers value. You know, the comment around subscriptions in the United States versus others, I think the business models will continue to evolve. But what I see what that tells you is that in the United States, that they're taking the step forward to truly know the customer, put packages in place that are designed for them and price points that resonate with them to get them to subscribe and opt in. I think that we will see various models changing and continuing to changing. But as we look to identify, as they always say, the 20% of your customer base that generates that 80%, knowing and having their data in a way that's first party and consented will help us all unlock the value of those customers and look for new models and ways that we probably never had thought about before, which is what's great about these types of changes.
Brilliant. And so from how do you see the relationship between advertising agency and publishers going forward, Ratul? So obviously, do you see working more directly with the agency and them having a further like better relationships with the publisher? Do you think it's already there? Like what will that look like after 2022?
You know, it's always hard to look into your crystal ball and kind of forecast that. But what I feel is happening is that everyone's being more honest with the customers on why they're collecting this data and why they need it. And then how they're using it becomes increasingly important across the relationship. So as advertisers and publishers come together, I think as Elizabeth said, it's getting in relationships now with those individuals. And as Jay talked about, how they're using those relationships to deliver and drive better content and tailor it toward their customers is really what I think that shift is happening. And we're all seeing a big uptick toward those types of relationship. And as I think Paul mentioned earlier, while there's $19 billion on the table, we know that a lot of individuals will still remain in charge of a big chunk of where this revenue goes, but it will open new opportunities for us to become customers of new companies, as well as gives them the opportunity to retain us.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, so we've talked a lot about kind of personalization and audience data, but I think there's a lot more that we can be doing, right? So contextual targeting or site targeting is kind of been discussed heavily in our industry, and actually going forward, we'll be able to use that as well. And I know, so Erin, you've been doing some fantastic work at Dow Jones, haven't you, to kind of show how amazing contextual targeting can be for advertisers?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm really excited, first of all, to be here on behalf of Dow Jones, the publisher of the Wall Street Journal, Market Watch, and Barron's, because we've really been focused on creating and super serving our layers of community at scale. We hit a really exciting milestone recently. We now have 4 million members, 3 million of which are digital. And that puts us in a really great position as it relates to the type of targeting that we can offer our advertisers. We've had great success with contextual targeting. We actually created our own unique contextual targeting product over 3 years ago now. And it now has over 80 themes, whether that's 5G or cryptocurrency or healthcare. And we're actually seeing it perform up to 3 times the average industry benchmark, which has been great. But we are not going to be reliant on contextual targeting, and we aren't reliant on contextual targeting today. The reason that is because at the end of the day, no matter the privacy regulations out there, no matter the impacts with the loss of third-party cookies, brands are still going to want to target people not just on the content they consume, but who they are. They're still going to want to target them based on their job title, their job industry, and their job function. And at Dow Jones today, we're actually already in a great position to be able to offer that type of targeting as well, because of the value exchange that we provide our readers. We are already seeing our readers are providing that information to us today because they know that they're getting access to this premium content that's helping them make really important business and financial decisions. So at the end of the day, while contextual targeting is great, I actually don't think it is going to be king in the long term, because those that are able to provide that value exchange are going to be able to provide a type of targeting solution that is more sophisticated than contextual.
Brilliant. And so you mentioned about finding the balance, right, which is a lot easier said than done. How do you think publishers and advertisers are able to find that balance? Like what should they be kind of looking for?
As it relates to the balance between contextual and audience, I think a lot of people have perfected the contextual targeting game. If you have a sophisticated technology like we do, in terms of we actually leverage our own Factiva taxonomy that's automatically applied to our pages, you've kind of figured out the game. But we know that a lot of others are doing that as well. They have their own contextual targeting solutions. But it goes back to being able to develop really great editorial content at the end of the day that is giving the readers what they want. And that's how you're able to give them an opportunity to share information about themselves. Readers know that they are providing this information. They're not blind to the fact that this information is being collected. But what we found time and time again is that they're willing to share this information because they're getting access to this premium environment. And it's not just the premium content that they're getting access to, they're getting access to these live communities where they can engage with other C-suite members and other senior business decision makers where you really can't find anywhere else. So once you've perfected the contextual targeting game, and I believe we have, I think it's really important to dive right into the audience game. And luckily we've had a paywall for a year, so we're already able to provide that solution today, and we will be in the future as well.
Fantastic. And that's actually really interesting, isn't it? The fact that the poll suggests that potentially people aren't heading towards subscriptions, but you've got a fantastic subscription model, don't you, at Dow Jones? Could you tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah, absolutely. As I mentioned earlier, we have now hit a milestone of 4 million members, 3 million of which are digital. We have an incredible entire dedicated team that has ramped up our membership in an incredible way over the past year, to be able to provide the type of content that we know our consumers really crave. It's been an exciting journey that we've been on, and the growth has just been phenomenal, and we're really excited to see it grow over the year to come.
Amazing. And so I want to remind you guys on at home or in the office, wherever you guys are, that we still do have a Q&A. So please keep putting those questions in for our lovely expert to answer. We will try and get through as many as we can, but there's quite a few at the moment coming in, which is brilliant. But please put your questions through. So I want to come to Elizabeth and kind of talk again about contextual targeting and how you think this might look in the future.
Sure. Well, I think advertising and media marketing, like every industry, is cyclical. In the first iteration of digital, we were buying contextually. We were also, manually setting up media buys and targeting between traders and salespeople, sometimes faxing over paper insertion orders. I don't know if anyone like me is kind of old enough to remember doing that. But programmatic, RTB, whatever you want to call it, really turned that on its head, and it put efficiency at the heart of the system. I think now what we need to do is marry privacy and efficiency with new ways to target using contextual parameters. What I can't see coming back is individuals' data kind of being commoditized and in some cases abused. I don't think that after such a seismic shift towards protection of the user identity, I can understand why we would want to go back to the way that some players were operating. And I think for now, the contextual targeting kind of represents a scalable and compliant way for advertisers to continue using digital media whilst kind of respecting the data they have access to. But to follow up on Erin's point, it's really important for brands to have a diversified advertising strategy, and contextual targeting is one element of that. It's not the be all and end all. We also need to understand who our audience are and be able to target them, again, in a compliant way. But I think for now, it's contextual that offers us the ability to be able to reach beyond the known and the unknown, and the known kind of portion of the web for some publishers who don't have a high kind of subscription or login rate could be super low, like 2 to 5% of their readership. And so it's how do you target that 95% that's left? And contextual and understanding those users, it really opens up that ability for advertisers to drive scale through their digital marketing strategies.
Fantastic, thank you. So you obviously, Elizabeth, just talked about efficiency, and I kind of want to talk about, obviously the world is changing so fast. It was 2009 when we got the first smartphone, which seems quite a while ago now, but actually we're such in a digital first world. The pandemic's obviously shown us this massively, and how actually it's so important that all of us are using the digital space. It's been 26 years of using cookies, which is quite surprising. It seems like quite a long time we've been using this. And I want to come to Erin and kind of ask you, isn't there a better way than using cookies? Isn't it about time that we basically kind of got rid of third-party cookies? Isn't this something that we should be celebrating instead?
Yeah, I think that's another interesting question, Emily. I think when third-party cookies were first used for advertising, it was well-intentioned. People wanted to use them as another way to provide a sophisticated way of targeting people at scale. But over the past 5 to 10 years, what we've seen is that there are way too many people in this third-party data game. There are way too many players mudding the data, providing a lack of transparency or understanding of how that data is used or activated against. And what this in turn has caused is massive issues with brand safety. So many brands out there are seeing their ads show up on these random sites that have no relevance to their brand or their KPIs or their initiatives. And because of those issues that they've been facing, they started developing these massive block lists to avoid being around content that would be hurtful to their brand. Fortunately, at Dow Jones, we actually don't have much of an issue, if any, with brand safety. 99.9% of the time, people come to advertise on Dow Jones and are confident that their ads are going to be a brand safe environment. But we actually don't stop there with our advertisers. We want to make sure that we're taking the conversation to the next level to really talk about brand suitability. And that's why we developed our own tool called SafeSuite that essentially optimizes those block lists and makes sure that they're still avoiding that negative content, but opening up an inventory so that they're not limiting their reach. For instance, let's take the word COVID. A lot of brands came to us over the past year and said, we don't want to be around COVID. And we completely understood that. Absolutely. We understand why you don't want to be around COVID, especially with all the ramifications and the effects that it has had on everyone throughout the world. However, we also can't forget that there was also a lot of great content around COVID there in terms of, for instance, Wall Street Journal published a lot of great articles about flexibility that it provided from working from home or spending more time with your loved ones. And we know that our brands still would want to be around that content. So SafeSuite was essentially a way for our brands to be able to be around that more positive COVID content while still avoiding the negative implications or the negative content associated with COVID. But SafeSuite is just one of the ways in which we're really helping our brands react to the negative implications associated with third party, because we have for years now invested in our first party data, our tech and insights to develop the more sophisticated solutions.
Amazing, brilliant. And so I want to kind of, obviously, we've talked about how it's been 26 years, and actually some of the data I think really speaks for itself. 20% of third-party cookies don't last longer than a day. So you can imagine that actually the way that we're targeting our audiences at the moment isn't very reliable. Ritul, I want to come to you and kind of understand, as a marketer, surely there's a better way that we should be doing this. And actually, as a marketer, are you not really excited about what the future holds?
You know, that's a great point. I'm always excited about what the future holds, because that unknown brings me a lot of energy when I come back to work to try to think about what's next. As a problem solver, as someone in the creative space, as a person who's used technology his whole life to find creative solutions, I think it just bodes a new opportunity. That change is extremely exciting for me. And hearing everyone talk today about how they've approached their customer base, how they're approaching the relationships they have and of course, doing it at scale is what's super exciting about this. And as a solution provider in this space that is all about first party data and giving brands and publishers and advertisers a platform that helps them store customer data at scale is increasingly critical. And finding those relationships and having all of the data around the customer, I think is, there's a twofold equation here. There's the advertisers that are looking at ways to find and reach new audiences and of course bring them into their ecosystem. But the other side is, what do you use that customer data for to create products and services for your customer? And listening to Jay and Aaron both talk about how they creatively use their customer base and to understand use their data to understand who their customers are and come up with new service models are something only you can do when you put your customer at the heart of your organization and their data at the center of that ecosystem. And that's the shift here that I think we're all seeing. Privacy regulations, customers speaking up about this stuff, brands all taking a forward look, Google leading a charge here with this. It's all incredible into what's happening in the ecosystem and what all of us can expect from both sides. You know, as I said, we're also consumers. I'm a big consumer of both the New York Times and Wall Street Journals as paid members of their ecosystem. And it's a wonderful thing to see how that's changed. The content has gotten increasingly better because of it. And it really does. The readability has gone up, the journalism has gone up, the trust has gone up to both of those things. And I think in a world where all of us are looking for those types of things, they're leading the way with that. And it's all done because of the customer data that they have. And the fact that, you know, they're doing it at scale is commendable.
Fantastic. I want to remind everyone on the call just to ask any questions. If there's anything that's not been clear, if there's any kind of interesting questions that you would want to specifically ask any of our wonderful panelists today, please do. These guys are experts in their field, so please ask away. No pressure to the experts on the panel. I want to, I think that's a very, very valid point, Ratul. And what's really interesting is you're right, there has definitely been a change in kind of the way that we've kind of gone about running the content on our sites, right? Because of digital advertising, you've kind of got two groups where you've got quality journalism, which is absolutely exceptional. And then you've obviously got the kind of clickbait where kind of sites are aware that the more people they have on their site, the more money they can make. And actually, do you think, opening this up to kind of Erin, do you think that this will change going forward? Do you think we'll see more quality journalism? Do you think we'll see what kind of stuff do you think we'll see going forward because of this change?
I absolutely think we're going to see more quality journalism. I think that is what this entire industry shift is causing. And I think it's a great result and effect of all the changes that we're seeing. I think that there isn't really, that's the only really solution that we can see in the future moving forward, is that those that don't have great quality journalism or premium content or premium communities aren't going to be able to survive. And the one reason that premium content is going to survive is not just because there's great content out there, but because of that information and insights that we can now gather from that content that is available and the information that we're gathering about our consumers to provide some more transparency and trust into really what is going on.
Brilliant. And I think there's obviously, as I mentioned before, there's some real key topics that are coming out of today's discussion. We've got trust, privacy, and transparent, I think, are the three key words. And pretty tough question, but as the experts on the panel, I'd love to just get your advice to people that are listening in what would you say to people, obviously with the big change going forward, to not only our readers, to not only marketers out there, ad tech platforms and publishers, what's the one piece of advice that you would say for people to take away from listening to this webinar today? Jay, should we start with you?
Sure. Yeah, it really comes down to, we believe respecting our readers' privacy is an opportunity, and it doesn't sacrifice performance or insights. It actually enables innovation. And my recommendation around that then would be communicate and experiment. You have to have the conversations with your partners. You have to have the conversations internally with your stakeholders, and don't be afraid to experiment. A lot of publishers are going about this differently, as are advertisers and agencies. And not saying any one of them is right. The only thing that I will say is right. Respecting privacy is the right solution. So however you go about doing that, I encourage you to experiment and communicate so we get this right as an industry as a whole.
Brilliant. And Elizabeth, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, so many thoughts, but I think if I could boil it down to a couple, it would be for advertisers and publishers, first of all, to really review how much first-party data they have now, what collection practices they have in place, and understand the gaps that are there and build strategies in order to address them. And that could be through partnerships or better internal kind of ways of working. I think when you come out of that practice, speak to providers, speak to tech providers, speak to publishers, and understand the infrastructure that can be put in place in order for you to safely analyze and activate that first-party data. Who can help you to streamline the workflows that you'll now need to put in place, because there's an incredible opportunity ahead of us in order to maximize the value of first-party data. So understanding that and getting as much information as you can in order to understand where are the pockets of value and how shall I be activating against this.
Brilliant. And Erin, what about you? What advice would you give to people listening now?
I would just remind yourself that the death of third-party cookies does not mean that it will be the death to your digital advertising strategy. Get excited about this change. Let's embrace it. There are so many great opportunities that are going to come of it. What it's doing is essentially accelerating the first-party roadmaps of publishers and platforms in a way that we've never seen before. It's causing them to not just have first-party quality data, but to provide that first-party quality data for you at scale, which then ultimately just naturally leads to an easy way to be transparent about that data, where it comes from and how it's used. But most importantly, and as Jay said, one of the most exciting things about this is that it's providing insights and solutions in ways that we would have never seen if we were still reliant on third-party cookies. This would have never happened if the industry had to still use third-party cookies in the future. So get excited about this change, embrace it. And as everyone else has mentioned as well, absolutely develop those direct relationships with publishers. They have a lot of great ideas on their first-party data roadmaps. And I encourage you to engage early and engage often to make sure that they're not just creating solutions, but creating solutions that are tailored to your needs.
I love that, and I think that is so key. I love the fact that you said it's not the death of digital advertising. You would feel like it is with the debates that are going on in the industry at the moment. But I think that's a good piece of advice to tell actually the people listening to not be as fearful. We're going to come up with a solution, and it's going to be a good one as well, better than the solution that we have at the moment. So super exciting. And so, Ratul, as a marketer, what advice would you give to advertisers and brands out there?
Absolutely. It's really interesting to think about that, as while it may be the death of the third-party cookie, I think it's the birth of a new opportunity. Jay said it best, we're using privacy as a way to redefine customer experiences. Elizabeth talked about the need for first-party data and those direct relationships. Erin's continually talked about content and how to reinvent themselves. All of that comes down to what a marketer's job is to know who the customer is, to help drive the experiences that they want. And this new opportunity to be able to connect the dots inside of our organizations, have new conversations. Marketers can sit across the table from privacy professionals to redefine what it really means to build a customer-first experience. What does it mean to do this across the ecosystem, not just within your organization, but across? Customers should get excited about what this change is about to bring for all of us. And I think the fact is we've already seen tons of new content types based upon what customers have been asking for and demanding that has been hidden behind the old way of doing something. I didn't realize that cookies had been around for 26 years, but it's, when you think about those things in technology seems to evolve at a rapid pace. And the fact is that now there are new technologies at scale that can help connect the customer dots. We've got such rise of AI and ML technologies that can help you find patterns across the data to understand that base, to deliver to them and give marketers and publishers access to new information, to define new KPIs, to create what is really at stake here is the acquisition rates of customers are so expensive. We should worry about how we're retaining them. And the KPIs around retention and giving them what they want to drive that lifetime value. I think when you think about those KPIs that really become what sustains a business, the fact is that growth and that retention will only unlock the value. And of course, maybe it's the death of third-party cookies, but we could retitle this as the rebirth of new customer experiences going forward. And everybody just get excited about that.
Fantastic. And of course, finally, Paul, what's your advice that you'd give people listening at home?
It was never easy going last because everyone said their piece, but I was very impressed with Ratul's energy and excitement, because this should be exciting and an exciting period of time to go forward. I think, just to reiterate some of the points made earlier on, is one, first of all, really think about how you're engaging with your users, whether you're an advertiser or a publisher, and think about, what's the value exchange. Now, the wonderful thing is most of the people in this call will have fantastic opportunities to have a open and honest dialogue with their users about first party and consent. And once you've got that consented data, have a data strategy around it. So who are your partners going to work with? How are you going to leverage that data? And how are you going to use the platforms, technology platforms that exist from us or other people, how you can drive that forward? And the last thing, I think we haven't mentioned a lot of this, is this it really is an industry dialogue. So don't think of this as an imposition, by platforms. This is really an industry-wide dialogue and set up discussions about how the industry works in lockstep to reflect user and regulator expectations. And so, with things like the Privacy Sandbox and others, this is part of a wide, engagement with the industry. So, welcome all forms of technology providers, agencies, publishers, advertisers, etc., to come in and start that dialogue, because it's really about the industry coming together and thinking about what works going forward and hitting those really, really high standards. So, the key thing is get involved as well as think about how you leverage your own data.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Paul. And so we're going on to the questions now that our wonderful listeners have come to us with. So I've got a first question. How is GDPR and obviously privacy laws going to impact basically the death of the third-party cookie and the solutions driving that forward? Should we have Paul first? What would this look like for the industry, do you think?
Well, I'm not going to comment on sort of specific regulatory environments. What I would say is that, again, all the stuff we discussed today is a reflection of regulators, and the regulators are reflecting user sentiment. So, the solutions we've discussed today, I've discussed today, are all relevant and sort of reflective of that new environment. So the fact that we've got a greater focus and a greater intent to move forward on this one is good for the industry. So I think this should only be a good thing. Regulators are really a reflection of user sentiment, and user sentiment says we want to advertisers, publishers, agencies, etc., to be much more sensitized around issues to do with privacy.
Absolutely brilliant.
Right. For me, GDPR, as Paul said, it represents the top-down push of what all of us were feeling. And whether it was GDPR or CCPA or LGPD or a number of other residency laws around data, it really just represents this opportunity for all of us to redefine what customer experience is. When the internet started, it was about connectivity. It was about open sharing. It was about the movement of data and speed. And we have to get back to, what does that mean? What is the innovation helping us all unlock? What's next for us? And I think that's a great way to look at it. I'm going to steal that one, Aaron, is that this is the rebirth of how all of us look at what we can actually do to the future for all of us.
Absolutely. And I think with the Netflix documentary over in the UK, and I'm sure it went out to a lot of countries all around the world, it really highlighted kind of how important it is that we should be kind of protecting users' privacy and also using their data in the best possible way, right? The social dilemma caused a bit of uproar, and I know like friends that aren't in the industry were really shocked at actually how we use their data. So I think, Ratul, I think you really hit the nail on the head with that actually it's giving people back the power, if you will, and actually going, you have that responsibility, and also gaining their trust as well. So for like the likes of Erin and Jay, that's super important, right? For your readers, trust is becoming vital. Erin, how do you think like you can continue to increase trust with your readers?
Yeah, absolutely. I think first and foremost, in the advertising industry, it's really easy for the first thing to talk about is your latest and greatest product or your first party new insights tool or solution. But one thing that we don't kind of talk about a ton is the major investments that we've put into teams who their primary job is all about data privacy. We know it's not the most sexy thing to talk about, but please know that there are many people on the publishers and platform side who day in, day out are making sure that the data that we use to target or to provide insights about is all provided in a way that users have shared their consent. Since we have had the paywall for many years now, and since we are collecting data in a variety of forms, everything that we do is carefully vetted by our chief privacy officer. And we have an entire team of data governance experts that we've invested in over the past couple of years. So even though we might not talk about it all the time, it's something that is extremely top of mind and is almost painstakingly part of the process, because it's that important to us, because ultimately at the end of the day, the privacy of the customer comes first.
Absolutely. And I think, Elizabeth, that's obviously essential for you and your business going forward as well, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the entire Permutive business is built around having privacy at the heart of it. And our mission as a company is kind of rebuild data in the advertising ecosystem to make it compliant. So I think it's something that is central to the products that we build, the way that we go to market, the strategies that we talk to our publishing clients about, the way that we're talking to advertising clients. And I think what regulatory change has meant is that there are a lot of different messages coming to marketers. And the way that I'm describing it at the moment is it's like trying to plan media on quicksand, right? There's news changing all the time. There's different directives coming out all the time. And so that can feel kind of scary and challenging. But I think the important thing to hold on to is that these changes are happening because customers aren't happy with the way that their data is being used. And that is incredibly important for us as an industry to respect. I think there was Forrester data last year that showed whilst people do understand that their data is being collected, so like, yeah, tick, they do understand that, they don't feel comfortable about being kind of tracked across different websites. They don't feel comfortable about the way in which that data is being utilized. And so I think that's the change that we need to sit up, listen to, respect, and build strategies that take data that's compliant, derive insight from it, and activate appropriately against it.
Absolutely brilliant. And I've got quite a few questions coming in around subscription-based models. And what's really interesting is I read a stat the other day which said that actually 15% of 15% of subscription models by publishers are the only kind of way to sign in. So it's not a high number of people that are signing in. Like 5% of signed in users is quite an achievement. So I want to kind of understand from Erin, like, what does this look like? Obviously, you have a fantastic subscription model, as you've said. But going forward, do you think you'll be able to get 100% of people subscribing, or do you think it will be a kind of balance of everything? And what would that look like for you at Dow Jones?
Yeah, I don't think we're ever going to get 100% of visitors who come to our site to become subscribers. But at the end of the day, we have made tremendous progress in kind of converting those users to become members with all the initiatives that we've put into place over the past year, because we have really taken it to the next level and not just continue to invest in our world-class journalism and be the #1 most trusted source of news. We've really been investing in that concept of community and engaging with others. So when you're reading the journal, you know that you're part of a greater group of senior decision makers or even the C-suite, where you have that ability to engage in environments that you might not otherwise have access to. We know we're not gonna get 100% membership, but we're not pleased. We're ecstatic with the membership growth that we have today, and we see it rising exponentially in the future as well.
Brilliant. And Jay, you also have a subscription model. What does that look like going forward for the New York Times in the future, do you think?
Yeah, as I said earlier, we are a subscription first publisher, and we're going to remain a subscription first publisher. We have an ambitious goal of 10 million subscribers, and at one point, the peak of news subscriptions in history was about 65 million people in the United States. So that shows that there is still a lot of opportunity for all publishers in the news category. And just like Aaron was saying, there are going to be people that don't opt to subscribe, or they will go to another news site to subscribe to. And so we see a large opportunity there, and we see advertising playing a critical role in funding our news journalism and growing our audience base.
Brilliant. And I think that's all we have time for. So I want to obviously thank our lovely panelists. I think we've had some really, really great discussions today. Key takeaways are to engage with your users, right? And finding that balance is actually critical going forward. This is a really, really beneficial change, I think, for a lot of different people, for publishers, for our wonderful readers. And also, this is not the death of digital marketing. In fact, we're creating a new and inventing a new digital marketing landscape. So it's super, super exciting. So thank you again. And I will hand over to Belinda.
Thank you so much, Emily, and all our amazing panelists. I think right back at the introduction, I said that our name for this webinar being Cookie-pocalypse was hyperbole, and I think we've proved that without any doubt. It's definitely not the death of digital advertising. It may well be the death of cookies, but it is really looking forwards to, if anything, a more positive world that we, I think, can all feel more proud again to be involved in. I love that stat, $19 billion of data, and that 56% of you think that it's going to be largely be heading towards first-party data, which, you know, as being part of the World Media Group, that's obviously got to be a good thing for us. The other words that I really picked out of this was around trust, respect, partnerships, building stronger partnerships again, which is something that I you know, I thoroughly welcome that we're moving back to that kind of model again. And then the other area, I guess where we all still need to find the balance going forward is the contextual versus audience, and how much you're relying on those two different elements. And I think that's obviously got to be up to each individual marketeer to work out where they're going to be investing the majority of their time and their efforts. This area is changing so quickly, you know. At the beginning of this month, the 1st of March, we hadn't had the announcements from Google at that point in time. I mean, the whole conversation has moved on so much in the last 4 weeks, and my guess is that by the end of April, the conversation will have moved on yet again. So we will be coming back to you on this. We're planning that we'll have a white paper that we'll be circulating after this event, and we will certainly be doing other sessions and podcasts on this throughout the course of this year. I'd just like to do one quick advertisement for the World Media Awards. Now, they are amazing awards. We target campaigns that are multi-country in nature. They have to be purposeful, content-led, creative, amazing campaigns. And I really thoroughly recommend you all consider entering them. And you've still got plenty of time. You've got until May the 23rd to enter. So do please enter. And then with that, I would like, can we put our lovely panelists back onto the screen? And I'd just like to thank each and every one of you so much for your help with this, and for everybody around the world who stopped off and listened in to us for a while. And we will get back to you soon. Thank you very much and goodbye.